Good morning. I'm Rachel from SpeechForLife, and I am so happy you're joining me today for our wonderful second part of our series, Fun Literacy Skills and Activities. So for ages 5 and 6, your child should be able to break down words into syllables and at least parts of words. So if it's like a compound word like cupcake, they should be able to break down the word into the two parts, and they should be able to break up the word into syllables like baby. You can do some activities for this. The way I learned it is clapping. So baby, and then they count. That's 2 syllables. The children that are 5 and 6 years old should know that letters have sounds, and they should be able to start sounding out the word. So they should know that the letter B goes B, or the letter S goes S. So they might not be able to say that for all of the letters quite yet, but that is our goal. And they should be able to name all printed letters from A to Z in uppercase and lowercase. And they should be able to recognize the numbers and count at least from 1 to 10. The next thing is saying sounds by identifying the first sound of a word or the last sound of a word. Another fun way to do this, and we're going to use this tool later. This is one of my favorite purchases from the dollar section of Target back before quarantine, so I don't know. You could just put stickies on your Legos if you just have regular size Legos and you don't have the dry erase markers. But this awesome little Lego tool is a fun way that we could talk about where the letters are in space. So for example, with my fun tool, bug, we know that the first sound of the word bug is the B. So they should be able to identify the letters, but the really important skill to build off of that for learning how to read and improving reading fluency and sounding out words is identifying that the letter B goes B, and the letter U goes and the letter G goes G. So if you're trying to teach them how to sound it out, we would go B, G, bug, bug. Oh, it's bug. So we are readers, so we know, but we want our children to go back to the basics, and we want to start with really blending the sounds. A lot of times the parents that I work with start by saying to name the letter, and that's great, but if you're working on the sound skill for blending and your child has difficulty blending the sounds together, it's really important that you just ask them to say the sound of the letter, not the name of the letter, when you're actually working on reading and blending. So we would just go B, G, bug. And then something like this is great because you could say, give me the first sound of the word bug. And then they can, oops, I erased it. They can take off the first sound, and then you can say, what's the last sound in the word G? And they say, oh, G is the last sound. Again, we're not naming the name of the letter. We're sounding out the sound and identifying the first and the last sound. First and last is also a really good concept to work on if your child doesn't know that by the age of 5. So there's a little language tip too. The next thing is sight words. Your child should be able to acquire some sight words, which means that they're able to read the word and have it memorized as soon as they see it. So there's a lot of good flashcard apps. Those are the main skills that your child needs in kindergarten in order to keep up and learn new vocabulary and expand their literacy, and then of course build on that with their writing skills. So we already talked about a few of the tips, but in books or text messages or recipes, as we've talked about, it's important that your child knows that they are surrounded by words and text. So point to each word as you're reading them a story. You can do this at a younger age too, but by age 5 and 6, your child should be able to actually point to each word as you're reading it, even if they aren't able to read each word. They should know that every time you say one word, their finger touches the next word for you to read. So there should be a really strong connection there. They should be able to talk about the words beginning and ending. So I showed you with my Legos. I think it would be awesome if when you're reading a book, if you choose the last word of a sentence or choose the noun, choose something that has maybe only 3 letters, like a consonant, vowel, consonant word, and ask them to start identifying what the first sound is and what the last sound is of the word. It's great if you can check their comprehension. So this means you will ask them story questions while you're reading. So after each page, you can turn the page and say, what just happened? Who did that? What do you think is going to happen next? So you're working on inferencing skills. You're making sure they're actually understanding what you're reading. And as they start to sound out the words and do the reading, it's important that they understand what they're reading too. It's amazing. Sometimes if there's a weakness in comprehension, even the best children with the most sight words, they'll read a whole page and then they'll have no idea what is going on in the story. So if your child has that gap, make sure you give me a call. All types of books are important to read. So by 5 and 6, you want picture books that have fairy tales, but you also want some science books, and you want alphabet books, the ones that have the nice picture of the apple and the alligator that are all on the same page with the letter A. You should do number books for counting, and of course I've talked about it before, but poetry is really, really important. Knowing rhyme and knowing that the end of the word sounds the same as the end of another word. Developing that rhyming is so, so important. Next activity is repeating phrases and words from the story. So you want your child to read books that have repetition. And I mentioned this last week with the preschoolers as well. Make sure that you read some books that have a lot of repetition so your child can start to recognize that what this word or this phrase looks like this in the text, and then they'll actually start developing their own reading skills as well, because that's the goal. And if your child has a little bit of a language delay and you feel like their sentences when they're speaking are not quite up to par, maybe they are not using a or an, or perhaps they're using the wrong conjugated verb, it's great if you can pick a book, or even if the story doesn't use the exact wording, but you can rephrase it, you can use the book and the pictures in the book to help target the goal that you have for your child that day. That's how you think like a therapist. That's my job. If you really feel like your child needs that level of support, again, call me. I'll be happy to train you one-on-one to give you what your child really needs. But that's how we do it as therapists. That's how we adapt all of our materials to turn them into therapy. The last trick is to break down words into parts. So as I mentioned, you can do this activity with Legos. You can do this with beads, and for blending, it's really cool. I don't have an example of beads, but if you can imagine a nice string with different color beads, and every time you choose a letter, if you have the little beads that actually have the alphabet, it's perfect. You can slide on the B bead, and then you can slide on the B, blend it, and then add the next letter, bug. And stringing it together might be another fun activity. In the olden days, we used to use felt to actually cut out different shapes and do the same sort of activity. So really you can get creative and do this with any material, and you don't even have to write the letters on it. If you're working on blending, it's great if you do write the letters on, but first it's important that your child knows that sounds make up words. And to write them, each letter has its own sound that makes up that whole word. And also by age 5 and 6, they should know that words make up sentences, and there's different kinds of words to make up the sentence. Okay, I think that is all for today. I would love you to leave some comments with questions, and I can get right back to you. That's it from Speech for Life. Have a great day.